Imagine a boy named Hapu. The sun is a hot weight on his shoulders. He lives in a small mud brick house nestled close to the Nile. His father is a laborer, his hands rough from stone and rope. His mother grinds grain all day, her movements a rhythm like the river. Hapu carries a heavy clay jar, his small arms straining. He dreams the jar is always full. He dreams his family has enough to eat and illness does not visit their door. This fear was a constant companion for most who lived under the pyramids. We gaze at golden masks and colossal temples, but that's only part of the story. The true story was written in the sweat of ordinary people. Farmers, potters, weavers, builders. They lived by the sun and the river, see the world through Hapu's eyes. Ancient Egyptian society was built like a pyramid, with a rigid hierarchy of social levels. At the very peak sat the pharaoh. He was seen as a living god, and his royal family surrounded him. They lived in sprawling palaces. Those palaces were adorned with fine linen and precious jewels. They commanded immense power over land and people. Below them stood the high priests and the nobles. The educated elite ran the state's vast bureaucracy. They managed records and wealth, living in comfort. Most people, like Hapu's family, were commoners. They formed the foundation of the pyramid. Farmers, fishermen, potters, thousands of laborers who built the monuments. Their homes were modest, a few small rooms in a village. They slept on reed mats or on simple wooden beds. They owned few possessions. Their lives were defined by physical work from sunrise and long after the sun set over the western desert. In the intricate social tapestry of ancient Egypt, women wove their own distinct and vital threads. Their primary domain was often the home, where they were the undisputed managers of the household. They raised the children, they prepared food, they wove textiles for clothing, they managed the family's meager resources, but their influence went beyond the household. Some ran businesses in bustling marketplaces, they sold beer, they sold cosmetics. Some served as priestesses in temple cults. Some earned income as professional mourners. Some worked as dancers. Some worked as musicians. Remarkably, women could own property. They could inherit property. They could dispose of property in their own name. Still, society was fundamentally patriarchal. Men held most public offices and positions of power. The head of the household was typically the father, sometimes the eldest son. In legal matters, women could represent themselves in court, but laws often favored men. A man could divorce his wife for reasons like childlessness. He was often required to provide financial support. A woman could also initiate divorce, but the hurdles were much higher. For the average Egyptian family, health was a constant and pressing concern. Life was fragile, and the environment was filled with hidden dangers. Most people lived in simple mud brick homes that offered basic shelter, but little in the way of modern sanitation. Waste was often disposed of in the street or in pits, creating a breeding ground for pests and disease. Clean drinking water was not always readily available. The mighty Nile, the source of all life, was used for everything. People drank from it, washed their clothes in it, bathed in it, and fished from it. But the same water that nourished their crops also carried parasites and waterborne illnesses. Dysentery, cholera. Ancient Egypt had a class of physicians and healers who were respected for their knowledge. They used practical medicine, magical spells, religious incantations to treat their patients. They were skilled at setting broken bones, stitching wounds, performing simple surgical procedures. Surviving medical papyri show a surprising understanding of anatomy and the circulatory system. However, their ability to combat infectious diseases was extremely limited. They had no concept of germs or viruses. When epidemics of plague or smallpox swept through a village, they were powerless to stop the devastation. The entire civilization of ancient Egypt was built upon the foundation of its agriculture, a system completely dependent on the annual flooding of the Nile River. This cycle of inundation, growth, and harvest, this was the central rhythm of life. The daily diet for a commoner like Hapu was dominated by two products of the grain harvest: bread and beer. Bread was the primary source of calories, made in various forms, from coarse, stone ground emmer, wheat, or barley. Beer was not just an intoxicant, but a staple food source, often part of a worker's wages. It was safer to drink than river water and provided essential nutrients. Beyond the staples, the fertile black soil allowed a variety of vegetables: onions, garlic, leeks, beans, lentils, lettuce. Fish from canals were trapped, salted, and dried for later. Production required immense, coordinated labor. Irrigating fields with a simple shadoof kept crops alive. They cut, threshed, and stored the grain in granaries. For elites, roasted meats, waterfowl, fruits, and honey were common. For commoners, such luxuries were rare. For Hapu, a piece of roasted meat at a festival was a rare treat. For a noble, simply another meal. Gods and pharaohs, the architecture of control. Religion was not separate, it was woven into every fiber of existence. A vast pantheon influenced everything from the rising sun to the flooding of the Nile. Prosperity and order demanded rituals, festivals, offerings. Temples were economic engines and centers of power. Priests controlled land, herds, workshops, and stores. At the apex stood the pharaoh more than a king, a living god, the earthly incarnation of Horus. His duty: maintain ma'at, order, truth, balance, justice. People looked to him for the sun's rise, the Nile's flood, and victory over enemies. Laws issued in his name were seen as the will of the gods. Divine status granted absolute authority and a powerful tool for social control. Belief offered comfort and meaning explanations for nature and a framework for life, death, afterlife. Festivals and offerings gave a sense of agency. Live justly, perform rituals, ensure a favorable judgment, and peace in the field of reeds. Yet the same framework legitimized rigid hierarchy. Challenging the pharaoh risked sacrilege. Everyone had a divinely assigned place. For Hapu, hard labor was not just social reality, but a cosmic plan. This could discourage dissent and make people more accepting of their circumstances. A faith that soothed struggle and sustained authority. Mud bricks and mortar, the shape of home. Home was a simple structure made from sun-dried mud bricks. Houses were packed close, often sharing walls. A tiny courtyard for cooking, a few rooms for sleep and storage. Flat roofs of palm and reed doubled as living space in summer. Small high windows kept out heat. Life was crowded and communal, children playing, neighbors talking, artisans crafting. Animals underfoot, open drains, limited privacy. Teas were strong. People relied on each other, shared tools, and celebrated together. But density brought fire and disease risk. Pharaoh's projects created worker towns like Deir el Medina. Standard housing, food rations, medical care for skilled stonecutters, plasterers, painters. A commoner's house crumbled in generations. Stone monuments aimed to last forever. The scales of Ma'at law sought truth, order, justice, cosmic balance. Courts heard disputes, property, theft, assault, adultery. In theory, blind. In practice, wealth, status, and connection swayed outcomes. A poor farmer's accusation against a powerful official faced an uphill battle. A skilled scribe or a persuasive gift could decide a case. Taxes and corvée labor fed army, officials, and temples and strained families. Men were conscripted to dig canals, quarry stone, build monuments. Losing a worker at planting or harvest could jeopardize the year's food. High taxes pushed some into debt selling land or even themselves into servitude. Ancient Egypt was a civilization of breathtaking achievements, monumental architecture, a complex writing system, a rich artistic tradition, but beyond gold and granite lay the struggles of ordinary people. Life was a constant negotiation with hardship, hunger, disease, backbreaking labor, lives constrained by a rigid hierarchy and by a powerful state and religion. Hidden rules dictated who they were and what they could become. These social problems are not relics of the past. They are the human condition. The fears that kept Hapu awake keep millions awake today: food security, good health, a safe home, a better future for one's children. This drive shapes laws, fuels economies, inspires faith. Let us take one final glance at the boy, Hapu, The sun has set, he has finished his chores. He walks by the water's edge, thinking of tomorrow's work. He worries about the coming flood, generous or cruel. He sees his mother and feels a powerful love. He prays for protection and sustenance.